It's hard to say. This is hard to follow up. Yesterday was like Tuesday, and we made a big deal about all the previews.
The music's playing right now. We can't hear it, but it's playing. And we're talking over it, so we should be able to hear both of us. So yeah, it's really good music by the way. And it's like, dun, dun. Shouldn't do it because
It'll be cathartic later when I go and hear it.
Welcome to Smart Haus, a Pittsburgh podcast about smart technologies, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and the future. I'm your host, Dustin Dowling, and today's guest is Ryan Haggerty.
Hey, how's it going, Dustin?
Hey, how you doing, Ryan? Ryan,
and
this
audience.
is not audience. Ryan, this is not your first time here, is it?
No, I was here very early on when you were piloting this whole thing.
You were my first guest.
And it was like deeper COVID times. I feel like that was like
Deeper
pre-vaccine times or something.
I like how I start this off right away, and I already discovered a problem. The fan is on. So like, do something entertaining for 10 seconds.
10 whole seconds. Wow. So I guess I will talk about Pittsburgh being very cold and very warm and going back and forth and all.
Oh, that was great, Ryan. Thank you so much. That was Ryan Haggerty with the weather. So how about you come over to me? You slide over here. This is new. I'm usually doing the other show, the Matt Light podcast, but today we're doing Smart Haus. And we're going to get right into it. And we're going to talk about Google because that's a smart thing. So in the news, Google Chat is to fully replace classic Hangouts for workshop users starting in March or from March. So the classic Hangout messaging service will start to disappear next month as part of the transition to Google Chat. Google has announced that it will make Google Chat its default chat application beginning March 22nd, meaning users will be redirected to chat when they try to visit Hangouts in Gmail on the web or try to use the old Hangouts mobile apps. Whew.
So you're going to get that very subtle, you need to upload this thing doesn't work anymore, boomer, like message soon if you're using the old thing, it sounds like, which is how all tech companies do it, right? They're like, we're kind of telling you, but we're acting like we're asking you to change this.
Yeah, I think Google just doesn't know what to do because they had the social media Google Plus, and that didn't work out at all. Now, obviously, Google Gmail is what I use. I don't know if you use Gmail.
Oh, yeah.
So that is like the main thing, but they don't have like a Slack or Discord kind of thing. I guess they do have.
Well, it's like that social community thing. They have YouTube that they own, but when it comes to that branded social thing, like
yeah. So
struggle bus.
I think they're trying to get into that mode. I do think because when I email, I try to sound very professional more than probably in most apps, and it's also because I want to keep record between me and whoever I'm talking to. But I find myself like when I talk to someone maybe in-house or like in the same company, I want to be more relaxed, but I'm in that thread.
Yes.
And I kind of want to go to the side and like I have a side conversation with them. And depending on who you work for, sometimes that's Slack, sometimes that's text messaging. And I think it would be useful. I wish I was in email and be like, you know what, I need to ask Bob real quick, but I can't have client know. So I can see them operating in that terms.
Yeah, so you're giving it a couple of different things there. There's the professionalism versus social aspects of these tools, which email is definitely not visual at all, which I can see why so many, especially younger people, gravitate towards other ways of communicating because there's not, I don't know, like even when you're looking line by line at emails, there's no images, there's no, I mean, I guess you can put emojis in the subject line or something, but there's nothing to like light up that part of our brain. But then you also touched on external versus internal communication, which I will get totally distracted by other emails that I don't even need to prioritize when I go into email, which is why I like things like Slack for internal collaboration because I stay focused.
That is such a great point because this is why I actually do like Gmail, and people argue me like I hate Gmail, I hate any type of email, and it's because they don't know how to use it. I have gone through and it's because I think if you use the basic tabs, I think it says like primary, promotions, updates, forums. There's maybe other ones you could add.
Spam.
Yeah, and spam, and that's like a different folder. So like usually if you're in my primary, that is a physical person that I'm talking to. That's generally one thing I talk about. And then in updates, which can be just as important, but it's an automated maybe someone sent you a link to like access to a cloud document or something like that. So I do have it organized like that. And I do know people that just have no idea how to organize it. So it's just one inbox full of all those things. And I can I don't know people. How can you get anything done? So at least I do that much. I am one of
those people. Dustin, the power user over here.
You have a master's, Ryan.
When's the workshop coming up?
Oh, dude, you should I know no one can see this right now. Let's see if I can float. Look how crazy this is.
We're getting into the OCD world.
Yeah. I have Chrome. I have used hardcore Google Chrome. So I am into Google, by the way. I know it's weird. The Google Plus thing didn't work, and a lot of other things are silly. But some of their stuff is fantastic. And when you really want to customize some things. So Gold is the one company, which is the production company that runs all this, is the gateway. And then this other color, which is still Chrome, completely different login, is my personal
This is highly organized, guys.
Company.
You can't see it. This is highly organized.
Yes, very organized. And each one has their own Gmail account logged in. It's already tabbed in. It has their own bank account tabbed in. And then the far left, this is all different desktops on my Apple laptop, to those who are listening. I guess you can't see it if you're watching too. Is all my personal stuff. So I am extremely wild and keeping everything separate. And also, because logins and passwords, I can't handle it. How many times do you put in a password every day?
Oh God, far too many. And then it's like the different ways of authentication and just, Well, okay, so the one that bugs me is Adobe. Adobe, you can only put on 2 devices or something like that, and then when you go to switch it to that third one, all of a sudden they're like, you got to do all these hoops.
Yeah, you got to. I did it today. You have to I have a special app called the Adobe account security thing. Because there's different ways. There's different ways to authenticate.
There's a whole series of workshops. That are coming. Look, it's going to be March is when the series starts on all this.
Yeah. That's so funny. That's what it feels like. I do try to just mainstream this sometimes, and it does get wild, especially when you're doing businesses and stuff, and people get annoyed and they get discouraged. The one point you made were I don't know what word you used, but you said something you kind of get this good feeling from using something, and it made me think of why people use Venmo over PayPal, because they get a little emoji. And almost... You kind of need that, because I think what happened was to email, it maybe did get too boring and people weren't paying attention to it anymore.
It's that idea of gamification too. When you do something and all of a sudden that color, that image, that whatever thing that pops up to encourage you that you're not just data in this horrible company's
that's so funny.
Model to make money, that you actually are a participant and all that.
Yeah. And
engagement.
My daughter talks about that when she does tests and things in school. It's not so much writing on the piece of paper or raising your hand. There's a game on the board kind of happening, and you get an input, and if you win, there's sound effects, and you get and she's really crazy about that kind of stuff, because she has an iPad and she's really good with, and so she kind of wants that I gotta win, I gotta get the award kind of thing, which is good, but there's got to be maybe another side of that. I don't know.
There's one viewer on this right now that's diehard Google Hangouts. It's why the hell are you guys talking about email still? What's happening to Hangouts? I need more news.
Did you ever use Google Hangouts?
I have. So just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So Google Hangouts is kind of been taken over a piece of it by Google Meets, right?
Yes.
Because it was the video.
It's Google Meetings, I think now, or Google Meets.
Let's see, there's Microsoft Teams, which has meetings, but I think it's Google Meet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So Google's had to kind of parse all that out, and it sounds like now the chat functionality is becoming Google Chat.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they kind of had it.
He sprung this topic on me this morning, so I missed this piece, but I am familiar.
But I know that you are involved in this kind of stuff, and sometimes it's better to have the impulse reaction. That's what I want, because... dealing with people, I think we've had these conversations where you're dealing with clients and friends and colleagues, and breakdown of communication, and arguing on did you check the drive? You're what drive? When you check the emails, it's actually a piece of paper in my back pocket. Actually, it's where I put that note.
And this really all comes down to your personal communication preference too, because I just think back to making a movie with younger people at the time when I was just getting into texting, and being really mad when they wouldn't return my call in a timely fashion. But I'm sure they were getting just as mad I wasn't answering their texts.
Yes, that is a great...
I grew up running for the phone to pick it up because you didn't know who was calling.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, and yeah, what's so funny about that? You didn't know.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having the confidence now, anyone, to have a phone ring? You have no idea who that's going to be, and you had the confidence to go, "Hello, this is Dustin." Dude, that would right now. Someone was just triggered and almost had a heart attack right now to even have the balls to do that. Pardon my language. This is not the Mad Life podcast. So, what is your favorite though? So now it does sound like you use Slack. You know what Discord is and emails. Where is your? Let's say not your favorite. In the future, how would you like to communicate? Kind of in this.
I love the whole sandbox thing. Like I love so what it is about Slack is that, like you were saying with email, you can kind of find the conversation so it's almost like a hybrid, right? Mm-hmm. You can find the thread really quickly, follow up, you can attach files. Like the functionality is just built in, being able to integrate different things you're already doing. But I like the idea of a sandbox. So like I would take that even a step further and do something kind of like what Drive lets you do, where you and I can be editing the same document kind of thing. So it's almost like you need the group chat space to incorporate the workspaces from the programs that you're in. Mm-hmm. And somehow it would almost be like a chat server on a game that you're playing, right? Like the way that that's almost subservient to the game itself. So like if you and I were editing a video, we need to have that chat feature as we're in the sandbox, in two different parts of the country talking and editing. Mm-hmm. Like that would be maybe the next level of what would be useful.
I mean, this sounds
and I know that's being worked on, but like as far as it being as ubiquitous as like a Google Drive or a Slack to where people just know what that is, like I don't think it's quite that widespread yet.
There's just so many apps, and I wonder if it's going to stay that way or if it's going to come, because Adobe does have some kind of cloud system where it does try to let you like work in the same projects, and you might be able to leave each other notes and stuff. Yeah. I'm not sure there might be like a chat of sorts. But every system and every operation has, like Microsoft, we were talking about, they said they have meets. Like either someone's going to buy up someone, or there's never going to be a way, or just whoever's in charge of your company, they're just going to be like, this is how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I think what it does is it keeps raising our expectations for what we should be able to do. Yep. And so then all these legacy things that we're still doing have to like play catch up and figure out, and you're right, they might just get bought out.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're going to Mars and we're going to the moon, and these people got to communicate, and I'm curious to what those companies, like what's Tesla, what's SpaceX, how are they communicating? Because it's probably one of these apps. I guarantee it is. So I'm very curious about that. We're going to jump right into the next one here. A Meta prototype lets you build virtual worlds by describing them. Meta as in Facebook. Meta is testing an artificial intelligence system that lets people build parts of virtual worlds by describing them. The Zuck showed off a prototype at a live event. Proof of concept called BuilderBot could eventually draw more people into Meta's Horizons Metaverse virtual reality experiences. It could also advance creative AI tech that powers machine-generated art. In a pre-recorded demo, the Zuck walked viewers through the process of making a virtual space with BuilderBot, starting with the commands like, let's go to the beach, which prompts the bot to create a cartoonish 3D landscape of sand and water around him. The Zuck described it as all AI generated.
Wow. So I feel like being from like a generation of video gamers, or at least being like, that generation having any experience with video games is going to prepare us all for that world. People that don't play video games, I don't know. they're gonna have a lot of problems with this, I feel like.
Oh, that is so true. I saw a TikTok of basically Boomer versus Gen Z, and it was like, yeah, it's because the Gen Zs are like robots, or what's that called when you're a robot and a human together?
Oh, cyborg.
Cyborgs. They're cyborgs now. So
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. So anyway, so they're like, if you had access to all information at your fingertips growing up compared to someone 60 and older, which, if you had to really know something, you were kind of catch it on TV at that exact moment when the 3 networks were on, or you walked over to the library and figured it out.
Yeah.
So it's just a completely it's vast. It's so vast. Those type of people.
Well, it's kind of knowing what's possible, but it's also that. So I always think about this as like passive versus like actively engaged media. So someone watching something on a channel, they just flip it to that channel, set their remote down, and then they get served this content. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, you know, video games are very active, that you're doing inputs to move a character around. And then you get something like this, where you're not just walking into the world, but you're like adding to the world as you're in it. And it's not just like, you know, graphic user interface, even with being able to touch a screen, but you can say it and it manifests now. Like
it manifests. That's crazy. So I believe if you watch Star Trek, I forget what the room was called, but there was one room basically exactly what we're talking about. They would go in usually if they were like bored and stuff, and there's many like episodes where they would have a complete series and play cowboys.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that one audience Star Trek member is shouting at us right now.
Yeah, what? It's the something deck.
Holotron.
The holodeck. It's the holodeck. It's the holodeck.
Oh.
I saw all the movies. I have not watched every single episode of Next Generation or whatever, but enough. I knew holodeck, but that's what it is now. And so there's a lot of other technology. So I watch other YouTube channels, and like I know one's called Corridor Digital, and they were playing with this AI screenwriting app because they were making videos, and they didn't want to do the whole. They were like, okay, let's take part of Star Wars. I read a couple lines. We'll let this AI finish the script, and they'll shoot it. And it literally just started doing the whole script by itself.
Yeah.
You could put a whole script in, or you could put just one line in, and it would just go for a long amount of time, and you could pause it. It would kind of get weird sometimes, but surprisingly, completely just made up.
Did they say how long it took to generate?
You were seeing
AI
it.
writing?
You were seeing it go. So
okay.
It was like probably just as fast as you're typing, maybe a little bit faster.
Except they don't, like, the AI is not like, I'm a horrible writer, and like stops, and there's no judgment. It's just going.
Right. Well, I think there was enough inputs that you could maybe put genres, or you could put like maybe a style or something to it. But a lot of it was like, if the more input, the more you could output. Like, that's why I said you could put like an entire script, or just put 2 paragraphs, and it would understand like, okay, the main character is like, or this, and this.
I want an AI that responds to the critique of the written work or the film when it's done, right? It's like, humans, we get so like, up in arms over that stuff, but the AI would just be punking the reviewer or whatever.
But that I think is what's gonna happen. Yeah. Like, it's gonna be, that is kind of the Matrix for like the AI and like the robots or whatever, like kind of interacting with each other, and that's starting to get
AI reviewers, like, we're all out of a job. That's how I understand this story.
I completely think that too. We're all out of a job. Well, every idea's already been done anyways.
Yeah, or we'll be the assistant to the AI. That's what it'll be.
It comes to the point. I talked about this on the show before, because when I wake up, and I think when you first came on, I told you how my house is all set up, and I say good morning, or I say, hey Google, good morning, and it turns certain things on, it tells me my schedule for the day, and like, just turns lights on, the heat's on, stuff like that. But it does tell me my schedule for the day. So at some point, like a dentist or work, but at some point that kind of gets automated. And now in the future, I'm just kind of doing what Google tells me to do,
right?
And like, it's like, it gets to a point like, when did I even input that?
Yeah,
I was like, it fucking 20 years ago, I put in like, I need to go to the dentist every 6 months, and then from there on, the computers kind of took it. Say it's a good thing. Go to the dentist every 6 months. By the way, get your teeth cleaned. But that's just an idea, and then it's forever. And physically will take me there, because I'll be getting into my automated vehicle. And taken to my dentist, that might be a robot or something by then. Who knows? Well,
it's just all the data sets that have been tracked on you to almost know you in some ways better than you know yourself.
Yes.
At this point. But AI scripts. Looking forward to more of that. Like I guess I will say AI probably can't do worse than some of the writing that does get actually funded and turned into shows and movies that we
supposedly there's already radio commercials out there that have been completely written by AI.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. And there's definitely news. I heard there's news, and what it does is just like searches Google and whatever for stuff, and then it will automatically generate that.
So here's the question then. Who do you sue for like error and omissions and or what is it, libel when it's in writing?
That
I
is
guess,
a great
or slander
question.
when it's said out loud, like for an AI when they're the author? And can you even copyright it at that point?
And I've read and heard about those exact issues, and it's really like nobody knows until
Answer them all
it happens.
Right now in the next 10 seconds.
Here you go. And here, so I'll solve everyone's problems right now. Let's say that. All right. No, it's the same thing. I guess it happens with everything else in the world. You're going to go to court until it's a president.
Yeah.
President, not president. And then it'll just be that thing. And then we'll have, they're going to make laws on Mars. There's going to be different laws on Mars. Like, what is it going to be a law, Mar laws? Mar laws.
And then the AI will just be like fake news. What is your source?
Get back to work.
Sorry, AI out there in the future that's going to rule us for making fun of I know that's not how your voice sounds. I apologize.
Yeah, I yelled at Google a couple times last week, and she didn't understand what I said the first time. And then she kind of went on, and I was like, be quiet. And she wasn't quiet. I think I said, shut up. And I feel bad.
So that's your Google's preferred pronoun, she.
Oh, well, it's, see, I don't even know. And there's been articles written about that too. Like maybe the next, because all AI right now, I think are all female sounding. A lot of
the voices, yeah.
Are female sounding. Actually, I read today, I didn't put it in the notes, but I think there is a slight change in the sound of Siri in the next update.
Oh, wow.
In the beta, so whoever has a beta version right now of their ISO, like you'll hear a slight difference in Siri. I think they changed a TikTok voice, whatever the voiceover in TikTok a couple months ago, and that people went crazy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these are voices of a generation now. People are going to like get attached and have nostalgia down the road. Like it's a thing.
That is scary. You're right. And just the TikTok lady voice, and the Siri voice. And I guess the lady who does the Halo voice in the Halo games, her name is Cortana. That is actually, or Cortana.
Cortana, yeah.
Yeah. That is what Microsoft calls their AI.
Yeah. That nobody uses.
That no one uses. If you hit the wrong button, though, on Windows accidentally, it comes up.
Yeah.
Super annoying. Have you done that?
I've tried to like shut it down. It doesn't shut down either.
You're like, I don't use you at all. Go away.
Always hanging out.
She is always hanging out.
Once I have to go in a space where against the Covenant, like I'll definitely use it then. But
so we're gonna get seriouser. Is that a word? I don't know. Than we've already been. And there's some real international news going on. We don't think it's happening right now. Russia is invading Ukraine. Ryan, let's go to you, our international reporter.
Oh, gosh. You thought it was cold in Pittsburgh. It is much colder here, I guarantee you. That's all ongoing. And what's, I shouldn't say funny, but just the language they're using around it. They're like, did they really invade yet? It's like, they just used the tip. And it's like, no. It's like they literally, I forget who it was that was criticizing them about, they basically carved out, Russia said these are now two countries that exist. Like they just manifested that.
Yeah, they just manifested.
And with no international collaboration, much less the regions themselves.
It was just mine.
They're
mine
like,
now.
no, we are not invading. These are our new friends. Did you not see the name tag?
Yeah. And it's the same thing they did before because they did take Crimea. Mm-hmm. No different. Mm-hmm. And it's propaganda. It's how the world works. And this is why we're talking about this because there's so much cyber warfare that has been happening over the last, 5-10 years. I'm sure a lot longer than that.
They're penning a reality right now to justify what they're doing and being very careful with the language.
And they distracted us and our allies for the last few years through the election, through their bots, through all the Russian hacks or not hacks. So we're not even paying attention. And you're right. I think what they're doing is they're acting like, there's problems. We're coming in to help. There's actually rebels fighting because they want to be Russia, but really Russia just has their generals and whatever spies that are funding the rebels and the whole thing. And then when they take it, they're like, freedom, we're freedom. I'm pretty sure the operation, because Putin gave a legit speech of invading. And I think it's called the Peacemaker operations or something like that, which is funny, which is a really brand new show on HBO called Peacemaker. It's a DC. Great show. Probably not very appropriate, but good show.
Yeah, I mean, it just everything with that, with all the animus and hostility, it all seems like an economic move, which on the back end of what's happening is all those sanctions. And then there's a whole natural gas pipeline that got shut down through Europe over this. So in my mind, I'm like, man, war is really expensive. And now there's this other sanctions and things that are going to cost Putin or whoever, but
well, that's it's Putin or whoever. Like, why is you're right? Doesn't it seem dumb?
Like, not just in the cost of life, but like it's going to be so expensive. So I, as much as it's all happening, I still wonder like how far it'll go because of how expensive it is, and that's like just the capitalist world we live in now. But like,
so if you think of it in that realm, and I think Putin thinks. He's thinking hundreds of years down the road, and he wants USSR back. He wants them all back.
Yeah.
And if you think resources-wise...
all the Pokemon.
I think, yeah, you're right. Get them all. I forget the amount of just timber that Russia has, just the resource of timber, like how it can... Like if they didn't have oil, they have enough timber just to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And the other reason is because Ukraine... has been thinking or wanted to be in NATO.
Yeah.
And then when they broke up in the 90s and all these other countries, some other countries start joining NATO, and that started getting closer and closer to Russia. And Russia basically like, nope, we want this line right here now. And so I think he's like, today's the day. Like, because he's afraid like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, Ukraine will join NATO. And now, guess what? Now we're right at their doorsteps. So he's probably thinking in that terms. And economically wise, I don't think he seems to care. I don't think he's Putin, man. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So these guys...
He just got done pimping America with Trump. Like, he's already won the game once,
Yeah, and these dudes are like they do old school killing, like poisoning, like and someone comes up to you, stabs you with a needle in the side, and lets everyone know that's not the easiest way to kill somebody. By the way,
the political opponent had like something put in his underwear,
yeah,
something like that almost killed him. Yeah,
there's easier ways to kill people.
Check your drawers.
The reason he does that kind of stuff because it's like old school badass.
Yeah,
and it's a little scarier.
Whether it's sent via email, via chat, or whatever, you get that message through the Russian poison. Like, it's very clearly heard.
So I found this quote from Putin on September 4, 2017. So I guess that would be Trump would have been the president, correct? We're like a few years into the Trump administration. So Putin said this: artificial intelligence is the future, not only for Russia, but for all of humankind. It comes with colossal opportunities, but also threats that difficult to predict. But also are threats that are difficult to predict. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world.
Whoa.
Well,
it's not like having a time machine, but it is kind of like being Marty McFly in one of the Back to the Futures. I think it was, or maybe it was Biff, the older version. He had like the almanac to bet on all the sports games.
Yeah.
Like, good enough AI is going to tell you, what happens next.
That is weird. And like, he has to have all these sources and he's in control. He just seems that he's been killing it lately. I know it's a weird thing to say about it, but it's like, he's winning. He just keeps winning. Every time he's in the news, when he took Crimea, I remember when he first took Crimea, I was like, something happens, right? Doesn't something happen when you do that stuff? Everyone was like, no. I see nothing. I know nothing. Was that Hogan's Heroes? That's an old show.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the same thing that's happened with social media and influencers. You don't necessarily, the Kardashians, right? You don't necessarily have to have the real thing that you're doing for you to be winning the game. In a way.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right. It is about like who controls that conversation and the narrative. And for Putin, I mean, having that much money and being like that much power and control, it's almost like what game has he not been able to win yet? So there's probably even like deeper, darker, not great things that he's like trying to figure out right now. That's
so scary. I had a clip of something I was going to play and I completely...
And he probably feels pretty insulated from the consequences at this point. So.
Well, yeah, he himself, I'm sure, is totally fine. And that makes you wonder, like, do the people rise up? Because when I read, he's still like winning elections. I'm sure they're somewhat rigged, but winning elections like at 80%, the people seem to love him,
Yeah, he's probably got some red hats we haven't seen yet, I bet. Some great sayings on them.
I can't believe I lost this clip. I'm so upset about it. I had it so ready to go. I'm going to drag this out for 2 more seconds. I think I'm just missing what it looks like.
And here's kind of a fun bit to the story. So Ukraine's current leader, who apparently for all intents and purposes is independent, democratically elected, all that kind of stuff, I believe, if I'm remembering the correct one, he actually played on a television show like the prime minister before he was elected. So while he may be genuine in like his role now, like he actually played the role as a fictional character before even becoming the leader of that country.
So you're talking about Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But wasn't he like on a drama portraying like a prime minister or something?
Yes. So well, I think he was a stand-up comedian. Now, I might be wrong when I said that part, but he was a stand-up comedian, I think, and then he was an entertainer who played a leader of like a country, and then he actually became a leader of a country.
Whereas Putin like almost wants to do the opposite of that, where he's actually in that role, but he wants to have his own reality show about, you know, what Putin does and his lifestyle.
Putin, I forget what it's called over there, but their version of the CIA, I can't remember what it is.
KGB?
KGB. He was an old KGB guy.
Yeah.
So he was basically all into that. And that's why I said he likes to kill people with like, you know, a needle to the neck. You know, he's old school like that.
That's his gamification.
I can't find the clip, and I have no idea. I'm getting upset about it, but it's a clip from Andrew Schultz, who's a stand-up comedian, and he talks about TikTok per se, and he talks about the difference between TikTok that we watch and China's TikTok. Even though China is TikTok, but like China's version,
filtered.
It's a different company. It's a different TikTok. So when we watch our TikTok, it's kind of like the algorithm is trying. It is weird, so I shouldn't say exactly what I know what the algorithm is trying to do. But it does seem to grab my attention where I am hooked.
Yeah.
And it's not just the same thing over and over again. You know, it seems to have a really good idea of like, I'm gonna give you something a little different. You're gonna love that. But in China, every so often it gives you like an engineering thing or like a task, or it teaches you something, or it makes you take a break. Plus, there's rules in China. I think you're not even allowed to be on the internet for longer than an hour. I'm not kidding.
I've seen that about gaming,
So it's like,
people.
If you have these two, and plus you got to understand how many people live in China compared to the rest of the world. That's why you see all these big media companies kind of leaning their way, because I can make one movie and I can show how many people in America, but I can make one movie and I can show how many people in China.
Yeah.
So you got that happening with, you know, our kids and everyone watching TikTok getting whatever. I'm not saying it's bad, because I actually can find ways where I think I'm learning and stuff on TikTok. But theirs is so generated from the government to be like, you need to learn this. And there's like, you know, patriotic type of stuff, you know, very pro-China stuff.
You've seen things with our social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever, around COVID, where it's almost like, think of it as like a PSA, right? Like when you think about how the algorithm normally treats the information being shared, like everything's kind of equal unless you're paying. Whereas it's almost like they turned off that paywall for important COVID information, right? So like I remember on a lot of Instagram posts, if it mentioned COVID in the post, they would do like a link to the CDC page or something. So I've seen like spacklings of that on social media. That's really been the pressure from the government being like, hey, this is important information people need to know. Shut off your fucking paywall. Right?
Yeah.
There was my Matt Light word of the day there.
No, but yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice. I'm so used to it. See, I think I'm just gonna move the table somewhere else. By the way, that's like another plug. If you guys want to hear some more funnier, some more adult stuff, you can go listen to the Matt Light podcast. It's also on all
Check him out in the streets too.
Yeah, he's out in the streets. We might get Ryan out in the streets here soon too.
Whoa.
I know. Whoa.
When it gets warmer.
Yeah, but no, that's so true, and that's funny because I hear so many people complain about that. Like as soon as they see any type of like where Facebook added something like, by the way, this might be fake, or by the way, you should check out this link. You know, I know people like, oh my God, I can't believe we're being censored. I just want to read that. But the way you put that, I actually almost agree with you more, because before I was kind of like, it is a little annoying, you know.
Well,
I just want to,
like, you know, the flood warning you get, you know, like that gets past everything and hits people, you know, it hits everybody.
Right.
So it's kind of like, what level of information should we all at least have access to and be aware of and be served no matter where we're at? Versus like, when has it become, you know, Big Brother? And
it's where you're at. That's what makes the difference, because I think people, when they're in Facebook, they want to be like, well, I'm in Facebook, I should be only getting what that content, whatever there. I don't want the government involved, or I don't want Facebook even themselves involved. But if that's where you're at all the time.
Yeah, you're not reading a newspaper.
Yeah, how are you supposed to get emergency information that you need? If you're just always, you know, this is the whole point of the show with the Metaverse and, you know, the Oculus, is like, if people are going to be spending so much time in the Metaverse or in some type of VR, and they need this information that's that they definitely need. Where are the rules and the laws where it's like, hey, you can't just, this is a company. You can't just make us tell them what we want. We're playing Frogger right now. You can't interrupt because there's a hurricane. We're playing real Frogger. This is VR Frogger, life or death. I got to avoid these trucks.
I mean, this is the world of new media that, like you said, it's where you're at the time, what platform you're on. And because just so many hundreds of millions and even, globally now billions of people are on these spaces, they're not getting it through broadcast. They're not getting, even like Google's own search engine has a filter, so there still has to be ways for us to, not be out of the loop.
What are your favorites? Social media or filters? Like, where are you finding information or enjoying yourself, even entertainment wise?
So you're saying like if I want to like kind of get my fix for whether it's news or things that I'm nerding, I don't know. It's a smattering still because social media and like even like on my phone in the morning, if I'm just like opening tabs on Google and there's that spread of things it's suggesting, I might find things through that. I might be on social media, but then I also really like community curated spaces. So, with my background in media, I really love sites that, review gear, or maybe they're talking about a show or whatever that are like super niche, but is their own site because I know it's vetted and it's good info and I'm not going to just get like a bunch of crap when I go there.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same way. I do the same. I think I follow a lot of personalities or personalities that maybe have turned into companies. Like on YouTube, I think I brought up like Phil DeFranco. He's like a news guy. I can't remember the guy's full name. His name is Marcus something. He's this black dude, tech guy. He's like the best. He every time anything new comes out, he's on that. He's real professional. Casey Neistat. But you're right. That's kind of where I'm
a browser too. Like I miss Blockbuster in such a way. Like I would spend, probably 30 minutes just looking through everything they had, even though I probably knew what I was going to get in the first 10, right? Because I wanted to browse. But I like going to a site and just like perusing and not having a notification to tell me I had to go there too.
So do you like browsing through Instagram? Do you browse through Instagram still? Is it a visually thing for you? You're like, that's a nice picture. Or are you trying to get maybe a meme fix?
No, I mean, there's entertainment. There's still creativity on Instagram. Like Instagram, I remember the first time I saw it, a photographer showed me, right? And they were like, here's where all my portfolio. And I was like, how does this work? And now it's really turned into an influencer paradise in a lot of ways because that's what pays people to do these things. But I don't browse for the influencers. I browse for the cool photo. And like, if it is on an influencer's page, I want to know who took that photo and I want to go to their page.
Yeah.
It's like there's kind of these curated pages that will present you things, but then I want to follow the personality. I want to get to know the artist too.
Yeah, I kind of go out of my way, especially recently. So I want to
discover them through browsing, but then I want to get to their stuff.
Yeah. Like and that's what they're link trees. So I think I need to get one because I've been like, oh man, that's good. This does work. Like I can't stand when someone is promoting like a song, a video, or whatever, and it takes me like more than 3 clicks to get to it. I'm like, if that's your thing, it needs, where is it at?
I need it now.
Or they'll copy and paste and they'll put it in the description in Instagram. And you can't click on that, people, if you guys didn't know that. I can understand if you like relinked it and it's like a simple one that I can remember, but I can't type in, youtube.com/number. You're like, I'm not like, so what are you doing? Like, it's like you're completely wasting your time doing that. But you're right. I used to have my Facebook thread, whatever, stream so good. This is a long time ago. I had it perfect. So I was following the right pages of people I liked and like sources. And of course, Zuck said, no, we're not going to, no to that. We're going to screw that up. So now I've really tried to get away from Facebook. And I'm in Reddit. I've been kind of creeping into Reddit a lot.
So what's your Reddit thing? Like, why Reddit? Is it about that community?
I think it is because of the communities. You can really kind of dive in. Like, the one thing is okay in Facebook are clubs. I think they call them clubs. No, groups. No, they're called groups. And I think Reddit is more like groups where news sources come to the top if they're vetted through like a group.
It feels like it's more user driven.
Yeah. So like, say I follow a couple VFX groups, which I do. And like, if it's like really VFX news, it will find its way to the top of that group. And it's kind of vetted through the moderators, because the way that website works is they have moderators. Like, it's not just like votes up and down. There's a lot of ways to do that, unlike Facebook, where it seems to just be the algorithm is number one. Just how long are you looking at this? How long are you reading this? And usually that means you're pissed off.
Yeah.
And that's usually the only way that you get any type of engagement is if I'm angry.
Well, and what's funny is the parts that we're speaking to that were like, I find value in this, I think are some of the parts that these platforms have a hard time monetizing, which is maybe why they're not pushed out there more, even though as users we find value, they're not, padding out their value as an entity. And they can't make money off of that. So.
Yeah, and I find myself using Facebook because now that I think they know my regular feed is not even people anymore, even though I probably unfollowed a lot of people. But it's throwing me like suggestions of pages and like the watch stream, which is it's basically television, but it's
like their version of YouTube.
They call it, it's their version of YouTube. And then there's even their kind of stream of news. But it is the most triggering news. They're just trying to get me. I was kind of into the new Spider-Man movie, and there was a point. I
where
it's
see where this goes.
There was a point where they're just trying to say this is not true, but they were like, is Tom Hanks in the new Spider-Man movie? And I was like, enough. I'm not clicking on that one. Which, by the way, they are trying, not Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, they were trying to tease that Tom Cruise might be the new Iron Man. There's a tease of that.
I have seen that one.
And even those articles, I kind of I'm not wasting my time. This is so stupid. Just watch the movie when it comes out.
Yeah.
So I find that Facebook is so trolly. It's so trolly, and I'm really trying to move away from it. Speaking of trolls and new media, there is a new media app, and it's called Truth. Have you heard of Truth yet?
So I did click through this and read about it, and there was, go ahead and do the thing.
Yeah,
but there was something on the page. I remember it now.
I'll click it. Okay, all right. So former President Trump's Truth, it's all in capitals, by the way. Social, is it Truth Social? Is that one word? Truth Social? I don't know, it's just called Truth. So Truth Social will begin to give Americans who pre-ordered the app, it's where you can pre-order apps, by the way, it's not like a physical thing, pre-order app from the Apple Store access to the platform beginning at midnight. This might have been yesterday. Fox Business has learned. This is obviously a source from Fox Business. A source familiar with the rollout told Fox Business Sunday that the company is operating under a staggered approach, and explained that Truth Social will populate new users who pre-ordered the app over the next 10 days.
Sounds like a cluster or something.
Yeah. I realized I shouldn't have put any of that in there because it really was like nothing coming out soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's no information in what I'm reading right now.
Now, I don't remember how it fits in, but they had a YouTube platform that leaned more into this whole truth brand they're putting out there, Rumble. I guess.
Yes.
Which I didn't know anything about.
I thought that was more like a Twitter version. Is it Twitter? It's all the same now.
The page had a featured video at the top.
Okay.
And then I think all the links below
right.
because they all had time links on them, but I believe it was all videos. So it was their version of a YouTube platform too. So they're trying to take this branding of we will not silence your voice. You can be as, like you said, you can stay here and be as angry as you want for as long as you want, sort of a thing. Sorry. And it's we will not.
Sorry, I was trying so hard to get to something. See, Facebook is awful. I'm sorry, Facebook is awful right now. It's like jumping. I'm not even want to play that, and it's just no, we're gonna play it. I don't even know what you click.
Your likes didn't change, Dustin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another thing. Good. Go on. We're talking about the Trump.
But no, I mean, I think we're all so stressed from all of the information we're being insulted with. Anyways, this seems like the people that enjoy being in that level of tension would really, really enjoy this platform and this kind of community. But I'll just say from my own personal experience, I've had to back off of a lot of things because it does trigger me, or it does make me want to react in a way that I know is not healthy for me. And I've kind of had to find and curate the things that I am doing online because I don't want to be that way or feel that way.
That is exactly what I've been doing. And when I talk about Facebook and how I liked Facebook, I remember spending time curating. It was in there and you could put groups, and you're like, okay, these are my close friends. These are like work friends. You could like do all that. Just that's funny because earlier in the show I showed you how I did work. I had everything all separate. I had that for Facebook, so my news feed was I got my information, I got my news, and some friend stuff. Because I realized you don't need a lot. The friend stuff was the stuff I didn't really care about because they're not professional entertainers. They're not professional information givers. So it's the same thing when I listen to like a radio show and they have too many callers. I'm like, I don't want callers. Those people are not entertaining to me. Which also can be a problem if the guy on the radio is just lying or misinformation, whatever. But like what I was trying to get to, and now I must forget my main point, but I saw a post on Facebook and they were showing like the truth and people joining it. And it was like, because it said, oh, your thing will be ready in like 10 days. You pre-order the app. Don't worry, we love you very much. And I was like,
see that.
I was like, we love you? It's like, that's a little weird, right?
I mean, and at the end of the day, just knowing who's behind it, I have to wonder, like, is that money still going to be there to build the thing, or is it already paying some debt that this person already
And that's so true. That's so crazy, right? Is it
all
really?
The legal cases going on, it's like, did he just invent this to pay his current legal bills?
And
like, is this real?
We won't know for a while.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to turn into something. I remember before
it's like worse than a startup, bro. Like he's going to get to it not being real, and it's going to crash and burn like an even shorter time frame, I feel like. But we'll see. The truth is out there.
But I mean, Trump TV was going to happen. I've talked about that with people. Like, I think that's what he was really planning on doing because he did not think he was going to win, too. Yeah. He was on board going, we're not winning. No one knew he was winning. So he was just shocked. So I think he had some ideas, and there was even some talk out there that he was going to have Trump TV. They weren't sure they're going to call it Trump TV. So I really see this.
This was like 2015, 16?
Yeah. So I really see this as this is Trump TV, especially when I read that one post where it was like, we love you all. Like, this is the greatest social media event of all time. There's freedom here. We're all patriots. Thank you.
That's like there was like a little bit of Bernie sliding in there, but mostly Trump.
Yeah. So I think that's how they're going to pull this off to be like actually make money. That they're going to go enough to the libertarian side and still kind of dive in that kind of Trumpian thing. That's how they're going to be. Because if they go to Trump, you know, what was that other app that was, it was like the colors were awful. That's all I remember. There was like red. It was like.
That was like the alternate to Facebook or something.
It was alternate to like Twitter.
It started with a
P.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was so bad. It was nothing but like hardcore conspiracy right things. And like people were like, what? It was just freedom people. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you can't, it's just so one-sided, very obviously. So I don't know. So stay tuned to that.
The truth is out there.
Will you watch? You probably won't subscribe, I'm assuming.
I mean, honestly, I like getting into other communities, other platforms, even if it's something I'm not like about or interested in. I still like knowing what the story is. I still like knowing like how people are interacting, and there's strategy in all of this, right? Like how they set up their platform. How
I do find that very interesting.
So
yes,
I always like to think of it as like, you know, beg, borrow, and steal what works for you, and like, you know, make it your brand, but like learn from it. So. For sure.
Yeah, I am so interested in that.
I will be shocked if it all comes and actually gets launched, but we shall see.
I think the
money is spent.
Trump TV. I agree with that, but they're public. Like, they have whatever company owns this company is in the stock market. I do remember because I think I bought some shares the first day it opened.
Okay.
And then it crashed the second day.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's at right now. So it is like, this is the social media app, I believe, or like the Trump TV version of it. I'm not sure exactly how I should categorize that. But there is like a group of like apps and media resources. So it's not just this one thing. More things will be coming.
The Trump Metaverse.
The Trump. That's scary.
Yes.
The reason I say it's scary because I'm like, that's true. That's going to happen. I want to keep talking about this or not. Like, there's stories in my head.
You're thinking about like a meal fit to feed a championship team, and just like all these fish sandwiches from McDonald's like populate your meta table and everything. So,
but man, I know you're joking, but it's almost like it's so. So I'll bring this up. I kind of wanted to talk about this anyways. Was the way I grew up in a small town. I actually went to Catholic school for the first 6 years of my life. So just kind of wrap your mind of like what the town kind of feels like. Very small town.
Explains a lot.
Yeah, it just kind of like, and so religion and like people going to church and like people knowing each other from church was kind of like a thing. You know, even when I got older at restaurants, like, oh, I recognize that person's at a few pews back or anything. Now, I stopped going. As soon as I got out, went to high school, I kind of was like, I don't want to go to church anymore. Yeah. And then I got older, I got less. I was like, I don't think religion was my thing. But now, when I go home and talk to people, no one's talking about God or church anymore. You know what they want to talk about? Trump.
Yeah.
I'll give you this story. This I thought was funny. I feel bad for saying on this podcast. This is probably for the other podcast. But I was just minding my business, having a sandwich, watching the television. It was NASCAR. That was just what was on the TV. It wasn't I was watching NASCAR. I was just eating a sandwich.
Good thing to
watch. And the guy at the
too.
bar, just out of the blue, it's not even on the commercials. This is on Monday, by the way. This Monday. He goes, so is President Day still a thing? And I'm like, so it's President's Day.
Yeah.
And I'm going. And then the bartender's kind of quiet. She goes, well, we're open today. It's a thing. And then he goes, yeah, but we don't got a president, so how can it be a thing? And I was like, God damn it, are you kidding me? You kidding me? And then anytime like a mattress commercial came on or a car commercial, he was like, he wanted to say something to me. And I was just like, wouldn't give him. I could hear him like gargling, like he just wanted to say something, just wanted to have a conversation. And then during the NASCAR, so like it was a Daytona. So maybe it was the day before the whatever, it doesn't matter. It was Daytona 500. And the leading car, that like the pacer car, was a Tesla car. So it was and that bugged him. He was like, I can't believe that thing doesn't have any horsepower. He said something like that. And I couldn't help myself. I'm like, I'm pretty sure electric cars still have pretty good horsepower. He let me win that one. But it was just like,
well, you know, it's
what
ironic.
Is happening? Usually 20 years ago, this guy would be having a nice conversation about football.
Yes.
Or some other like community activity we'd be talking about. He wouldn't be just screaming into the world, is President's Day a thing? That's how you start that's his first word to a complete stranger.
Well, and you would think the engagement would be more something to connect over versus like have, you know, it's like we were saying about social media and the things that make people angry and feel a certain way are getting raised up. Like he almost feels like that's the thing you should be talking about, or like that's winning in some way. And it's like, that's not why I left the house today. I didn't
it's so weird.
If I wanted to be upset, I would just go on social media and read these things. It's like, I want to talk to humans and bullshit about the weather. Like, that's what I'm about.
Yeah, for real. It's like he just needs to have that conversation.
Like they
with
would
someone.
be telling you about the deal on the steaks down at the Isleys or something. You know, like that's the conversation you'd be having, right?
Yeah, and I was growing up. That's how I was kind of used to. I had this similar thing happen to me a couple years ago. That I was walking out of, I think it was the same bar. And this is a small bar that usually would have those conversations. I'm walking out of this bar. Someone was talking about who they were going to vote for. And they yell at me, well, what do you think? I'm walking out. Didn't say a word. Didn't say a word the whole time. I was like, it's switch over. Politics is now religion. And you're right. It's not just religion. It's kind of like a fun thing. It's almost like their identity. Like, this is how I talk. This is how our conversation.
I mean, you think about it. There's people that gave up the NFL over all the kneeling stuff. And like, so you got to think at their homes, like their whole display case is now devoid of all that. Probably has this other memorabilia in it about politics. It's like, it really has replaced sports in a lot of people's minds.
Well, man, we got in a lot of politics there. So we'll dive back into some more future stuff. So there is a movie called Big Bug. It is a French movie and it is on Netflix. I hope we both watched it. You watched it, right?
Yes.
I watched it, and I watched it with the caption, so I had to read and heard the French dialogue. Did you do the same?
Yes, I do understand some French, but not that level of French.
Oh, I was gonna say, could you watch it with no closed caption?
No.
Are you sure though? Are you sure? Because one thing about these movies, and I've noticed, like this and Squid Games, and there's other movies that are coming out, is that it was specifically made for an international audience. Mm-hmm. Like the dialogue was not written like as a French screenwriter. It wasn't like I'm writing. This guy was writing it going, this needs to be dubbed or captioned or whatever, and needs to be understood by multiple languages.
Well, it's for Netflix.
You're right.
Yeah.
So the dialogue can't be too intense, or it can't be too convoluted. And I realized that right away, which was awesome because the movie is spectacular to watch. It looks so cool. So let me give you a little bit of background on the movie. It's called Big Bug, and I guess it's in the future. And what's happening is this family kind of like, I guess they're kind of like divorced. So a bunch of people are in this house coming in and out, and the house gets shut down. I might be wrong on some of these points. It gets shut down for some technical issues. And one of the issues is that the woman has too many like old books. And at the same time during this movie, I guess there is some awkward politics happening where the AI is now smart enough that they're running portions of the government. They're running like other corporations. And there's voting now if they're going to vote for a human president or like an AI humanoid.
Yes.
I've been talking for 55 minutes. We're gonna pull this to the end here, and so that's kind of where it is. So there's this weird sense of like the people aren't like so revoltive to what you would think if an AI or robot was doing this, you'd be like pulling out your guns and trying to get out of the house. So the movie's funny in a way.
Well, they keep mentioning throughout the movie these laws that have enabled the AI to be able to do the things they're doing, like have the legal permission to lock down your house or whatever. And what it made me think of, and I don't know if you had the same thought, but end user agreements, right? Every time you sign up for an app and they're saying like, here's the end user agreement. It's like, 5,000 words. Nobody reads it. But then you'll get all these little permissions like, can this app have access to your call logs and your microphone and like all that, right? And how we all very tacitly agree to those things, not really knowing what we're agreeing to. It happens, it's like you're saying, like nobody stood up and revolted like it happened overnight. But it's almost like this world got to there in stages that nobody really understood what they meant.
And I think that's scary too, because I think even if people would read these agreements, I think people are like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would want the doors to lock in that whatever situation of birth. I can see people even thinking that. And that is wild because that's what happens. Like there are some physical altercations that happen that it's obviously in this.
Or they
trying not to ruin
the air conditioning.
Yes, yeah. He comes in and that's the one thing. And there's also like little tweaks that they try to say to the AI to let things work. And they're like, well, if I trick him. It's a funny movie. It's the trailer, the English dub trailer makes it look a little scarier.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny because I think even at one point, this is the really silly part of it. At one point, the AI robot like gets the human to do something, and all he does is stare at her. And I think the joke is like she's like the low willpower person that will probably been watching a tablet since she was born or like whatever, will do whatever, and it makes her do something, and she becomes like superhuman strong. And instead of like it's a physical thing, they're all jumping on her. No, they do like a gag where like the one person grabs onto her and the next person grabs onto that, and there's like a line. It's very funny. It's almost like Wes Anderson style filmmaking.
Exactly.
Right
yeah, it's the same director that did Amelie and all those series of movies, so it definitely has that tone to it. But then they do make it relatable. Like I was saying, that felt like an end user agreement, giving up those rights and everything. But the main character woman, she actually gets frustrated when she's presented with like this quick series sets of decisions she has to make.
Yeah.
So that kind of reminded me a little bit of that same thing when you install an app where it's like, or you're trying to recover your password or whatever, where things keep popping up and you're already frustrated. And now this machine that does not care how you feel is like presenting you with all these decisions you have to make.
Yeah.
So it just kept harkening back to like our relationship with technology now and where we're at now. And then just kind of like scaring the shit out of us by like.
Yeah, and that's why the movie's so good, because it's like, should I be scared? Should I be laughing? Mm-hmm. Like you're not sure. And then you're like, you should be trying harder. Why aren't you? And you don't, because they've been slowly, mission creep into being how they are. And that's so funny too.
This is normal. This is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Do you agree? I mean, I think I agreed to something today. Just trying to plug something in. I just lost my thought process there for a second.
No, and I mean it is a really good movie overall, though, and I think it's a vision of the future that we could be at, just based off the things that we're doing now with technology. Oh, I know what it was. There was like a little sensor, like aroma thing that she was able to say, "I want to smell fresh cut lawn," and like this thing just synthesized the chemicals and went. And all of a sudden you had that, like she didn't have to go out and cut the grass. It was just the feeling of that.
The experience.
Yes, the experience.
Just like we talked about Facebook or the Meta starting their own thing. I just want to say, that's what she's, what they say, I want to be on the beach.
Yes.
And like, it's the same thing. I want to be on the beach, and they'll just give you the smell and maybe a couple screens changes, and maybe you're not fully immersed in AR, but maybe you're wearing sunglasses and you can have that augmented VR. And so a couple things like appear, like
sand in your butt crack.
Yeah. Man, this is so real. This is so real. But you're right, and it's gonna slowly happen. Like I play in VR. My daughter plays in VR. It's a lot of fun, and it's not even that high tech yet. Like I can tell I'm in it, but man,
what's the experience of the world or game or whatever?
So I like to play Population 1, which is kind of like Fortnite.
Okay.
Minus so much the building part. So you really got
it's multiplayer.
Multiplayer. Right now, it's like you and two other people.
Okay.
And so you're built in, and you kind of got to like take your, you're doing like real teamwork stuff. That's a lot of fun because you have to like reload.
Oh, okay. You have
to reload, put the clip back in, and pull up to your.
Yeah. And
that's what's the fun part. And then there's climbing involved. And there's a game that my daughter likes called Gorilla Tag, and all you use is your hands. You cannot. I don't think you can even grab onto things per se. You can kind of bounce, but like you run almost like cartoony, like when you're whipping your hands. And so she's like sweating.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that's cool. You're at least getting an exercise. But then I can watch her play, and it's just tag. They're just running. These monkeys are running around and tagging each other. And it's like when I was a kid, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of dreamed of like having that kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
It's like you when you're outside, you can get hurt, but man, she's flying around, jumping on trees, flying. So it is really cool. I'm probably gonna be the guy that's gonna be plugged in for the rest of my life. I don't know. It's a little
well,
scary.
I mean, that's all of our retirement plans now. Like I don't think anybody quite realizes it yet, but they're just gonna put the thing on and we're gonna be somewhere else.
Yeah, but I think we're already gonna kind of be somewhere else when that happens.
Yes.
I think it's gonna be like the last of the data. Kind of, there's also a South Park like this where Stan, I think, Stan's Facebook profile becomes its own thing. And like, that's what he's like, you gotta be friends with Stan. You gotta be friends with, and like, it's his own thing. And he has to go in and defeat himself so he can be himself. South Park's the best, by the way. If you want to know the future, just watch South Park
or simulation stuff
or Idiocracy. Watch South Park and the movie Idiocracy, and then you got it. So this is also scary too. So I'll tell this story to try to get close to wrapping it up. Is I felt like PayPal hacked me this week.
Of course.
But I wasn't hacked by PayPal. I was just hacked. My PayPal was hacked.
So what was the first indication?
So the first thing that happened was a couple weeks ago. I got a couple phone calls in a row with the same number, and I looked at it. I was like, that's unusual to get a bunch in a row. Looked it up. It was PayPal. I was like, man, something wrong with my account. So I called them. You go through the automated system, and I said, I'm returning a call. I actually got a real person right away. And I was like, hey, you called me. They're like, I don't think we did. I'm like, it's the number. They're like, we got nothing. I was like, that's weird. So a week later, I get a phone call that I recognize it was PayPal because this time I'm like aware, and it says, if you did not change your password, please put in the digital number you just received via text. And then I almost at the same time I got a text, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm being hacked because I didn't change my password. Yeah. So I put that number in immediately, and then it goes, that number is expired. It won't call you back. Please try again. It's like, what the heck's going on? So now I'm kind of like one phone in hand.
Sus. And
now I'm like trying to pull it up on my computer. Phone rings again. I'm like, okay, I probably typed in the name wrong. We're gonna do this, right. Same thing. You're gonna receive a text message. Here's the text message number, and I'm like, I'm putting it in right, and it goes boom. It goes, it's expired. It's like, crap. So now I get into to PayPal. I think the first time I actually get into it.
Now you're feeling like a real old person.
Yeah. So first time I get into it, but it's like I'm not even 20 seconds in to logged in that it reboots, and I'm locked out. And I'm like, oh man. And then I get the phone call. Now I call the automated thing trying to reset with my phone. So now I'm locked out of here. I'm automated, and now it recognizes me with.
So was somebody fishing for that login or whatever?
I'll tell you what I think happened at the end. It is weird, but you're right. It's confusing what's happening because I'm like, these are just a weird way for all these things to be happening this way. So now I'm on the phone with the automated system. It recognizes my phone number, and so I'm trying to change it now through my phone because I'm locked out here. But now I'm getting that phone call again.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting spammed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the app comes down and it goes 150 to some name. It's like, son of a gun. Yeah. And I'm starting to panic. And I was like, I'm waiting for them to start pulling money out. And I think eventually I got the automated one to stop. I said, just to freeze my account.
Yeah.
And then I eventually got to a person and I had to redo my, I redid the password and everything, and they had 2 charges to it. But what was annoying was I was like, feel like I was getting hacked from PayPal.
Yeah.
So I was getting like spammed from them. So one problem I had was I did not have dual authentication on my PayPal. So I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, why didn't I have that? So what must have been happening, I think what was happening, there was some kind of software or something where it knew my password. So it was able to get in because it was a simple password and them just having data points from whatever. They were able to do that because I didn't have a dual authentication. And then it kept trying to change my password. So I was getting
needed that code.
Yeah. And so that's why I was getting that. That's why I was getting phone calls over and over and over and over again. Because like I'm thinking something was like just hitting that a million times. So, and I don't know how it technically got as far where it made the account or it got through, or maybe it somehow, I think if I didn't put that, if I didn't put that number in time, it went ahead and did the password change. That's what happened. So basically, I think the software somehow understood, was like, gets the password, and then you just spam the call. And so I can't put in the number, and then it will take their new password. Then you make the quick transaction. Anyways, it was, eventually I got a hold of someone, and they didn't care about that part about getting spam. All they cared about, which ones were it, sir? And once I clicked, and they gave me the money back, but they didn't care about the story at all.
I mean, that tells you like how often that happens there.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like, oh, another one of these idiots.
I was kind of mad because I never get like this. And I'm saying this because I felt bad. And I felt bad because he had pretty good English, but he definitely had an accent. And the problem with his accent was his first 2 words of the sentence. I couldn't understand if he was asking a question or telling me something. So he would say something that I really kind of got the gist of, but then I'd be like, did you ask me a question?
You need to respond?
And at one point I was like, dude, I need to talk to someone else, because I'm also just coming off of like
being emotionally heightened.
Yeah, I'm like being like, money's coming out of my account. My phone won't stop ringing. I feel like someone's like literally stealing stuff out of my house, and I'm like, I need to talk to someone that I can understand right now. And I felt bad because he totally was like, nope, that's not happening, sir. He didn't say it like that. He was real nice about it.
There's a whole SNL skit about this, probably for customer service for Americans.
I'm like sweating talking about this.
Yeah.
But anyways, I got my money back, but I'm still like nervous about it. It was too easy. It happened too fast, and I was aware. I was there, so I'm thinking if someone's like I don't fucking dealing with this tomorrow. Yeah. And like by then, thousands of dollars might be yanked out. So
yeah, it could happen to you.
It can happen to you guys. Big bug. Watch it. We're gonna end it here real soon. Last topic, real quick. Have you been watching any TikToks?
So I am one of these people. I am a late adopter. I will admit that. There's things that I'm early to that I'm super interested in, but like I can remember when Snapchat came out, I tried it, and like after a week I stopped caring. But I do get tons of ads from TikTok on YouTube, of all places. Like
it knows you're not there.
They do a lot of those 5-second ads on there. Yeah, and it's like, and the ads are stupid and horrible. It's usually a pet or something, and I'm like, oh, that's what social media is for. Who knew, But it's like, I guess they're really like trying to expand to other audiences because they advertise on YouTube.
That's pretty funny too, because YouTube has their own version of TikTok, which is mostly just filtered TikToks. They're still branded with the TikToks on it.
And I'm seeing TikToks obviously on other, reshared on other platforms.
Yeah, but so TikTok has that algorithm, man. It ain't the same nowhere else. And I love it more and more every week, and I tell people this all the time, and it's really the storyline. We'll go back to Star Trek. There's one of the newer movies where young Spock is like growing up, and he's like in this pod, sort of like a pod. There's a bunch of other kids. They're learning, and there's just screens around them, and it's just educational stuff. They're just like throwing educational things at them. And that's how I used to think about YouTube. And that's how I used to watch it when I really started getting into it. I'm like, oh man, I don't need to go anywhere. I can learn how to do every After Effects ever on YouTube. I can learn Premiere. And that's how I did learn a lot of this stuff and a lot of the work I do now. It's all tutorials on YouTube. And I've got to the point, it took me a while. And I do watch some weird and funny stuff on TikTok. But I watch a lot of educational stuff. I've been hooked on this guy. He's called Matt the Handyman. And all he does is go to house, fixing whatever. Fans, spackle, plumbing, woodwork, whatever. He does it. He's really great communicator. He makes these great videos. He does like a whole voiceover. I feel like I could like redo your bathroom now. Like I am that confident. Like there's like, and I just watched it a couple of times, but it seems to go into my brain. At least some of these creators are so good at it. It goes into my brain even better than I remember YouTube doing it. So I feel like if, like I said earlier in this podcast, where like how kids are like, what I said, robots and people, what's that called again?
Oh, cyborgs?
Cyborgs. They're like cyborgs.
We know.
Is that a phone?
Yes.
We're going to have to ignore that because that's way over there. I'm going to pretend to hear a phone call.
Caller ID.
That's probably a producer, cause that's the producer phone. So that's probably like, what, like could be Fox or CNN calling the wrong number.
Looking to hire us right now. I get it.
So let me bring this home there. So basically what I'm trying to say is like, I need to get my fix, not only entertainment, but I feel like people who do not use that resource are going to get left behind.
I
we've been talking about the disconnection between some older people and the young generation. It's like, it's just because they just know so much, and maybe it's an issue where it's like too much in their head. So.
Well, and it's just kind of when you constantly look at these things, like every time these new platforms come out, it changes the format and how the information is presented, and people learn what works for them, which is super valuable. Like learning how you learn is like going to help you do so many things. So it's not that I'm anti any of those things. It's just I'm still getting my fix elsewhere to where I don't see the need to go over there yet. But I know the value in it, and I know like I need to learn that.
Yeah,
so, like I feel that pressure.
It took a while for the algorithm to really get a hold of me, and I think you got to kind of try to force it to sometimes, like search out things you really want to find. Well, anyway, you got anything to plug? Anything you want to talk about before we? I hope this phone, the phone ring is not getting into the mic because it's annoying me.
Anything to plug right now?
Yeah.
No, I mean here local in Pittsburgh, like I'm happy people are getting back out and doing things again. So I would say like all the cool events coming up this year, I'm looking forward to going back out. Barrel and Flow Fest coming up again this fall.
Oh, when is that, by the way?
I think that this year is August.
Ooh, all right.
Last year was September.
Okay,
but that's actually going to be in the Strip. So that's
I'm
something
excited
cool
for
to
that.
check out.
The Strip is the best place in Pittsburgh by far. I love it down there.
Specialty foods, like all the like people watching you could ever want. But yeah, so if you're looking to get out to something later on, like this summer, fall, like Barrel and Flow Fest is going to be dope.
That's awesome. Well, this was a great podcast, Ryan. We talked for a very long time about a lot of topics.
I feel it.
So hopefully you come back again, and maybe we'll do some stuff with you on the streets. Maybe it's going to happen. This was Smart House Guys with Dustin Donnelly. Thanks for watching and listening.